This is important, perhaps the most important part of today's event, and I will let Cecile introduce it.
I agree.
Robin and I are going to share this list because it's a very, very long. I was going to introduce this by saying that actually many of my friends are here today and don't know this. My best buddy was killed 11 years ago. He was also serving in the military. He was in the Army. He was not, his killing was a civilian killing. It was not related to Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It was not related to sexuality. But because we were best friends and not partners or married, I didn't find out about his death directly from a military service person, as is done for spouses and direct family. And it pained me for years after that I had to find out in a very indirect manner about his death. And so my heart really goes out to the partner of August Provost, who had to find out from the media that the person who called him the love of his life had been murdered, rather than finding out in the most honorable way directly from a military service person. And that is part of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'm going to begin. Okay. The following names and stories of LGBT and other hate crime murder victims and suicide victims are compiled from a video produced by Rob Kossel, a video I found on YouTube which has been viewed by over 78,000 people so far. This list is very incomplete. It does not include the most recent LGBT hate crimes, including 2 recent suicides in April by 2 11-year-old boys who were being bullied in school for being called gay and ended up deciding to take their own lives. Robbie Kirkland was 15 years old when he committed suicide in 1997. Robbie took a key from his father's keychain, unlocked the gun case, and put the keys back. He went through a friend's room and crawled up to the attic where he lay down on a mattress. He then shot himself in the head. The suicide note was found in a notebook at his mother's and read, "I'm sorry for the pain I've put everyone through. I hope that I can find the peace I couldn't find in my life." Keith Fenrick, an African-American 21-year-old man's body was found in March 2000. A man walking through Alley Pond in Bayside, Queens, found a big blue plastic tub. He opened it, finding an acid-burned skull, a foot bone with flesh on it, and other crushed body parts. The skull was scrawled with a social security number and a racist and anti-gay slur. In the interest of telling the truth, I'm going to read it. On his skull, in fact, was written, "Gay Nigger Number 1." Police initially suspected the grim find to be the result of an occult killing because the social security number included 666. The killer was the stepfather who when discovered, took his own life after a shootout with police. Bill Clayton, born 1978, died 1995 after being bullied, sexually taken advantage of. He took his own life. Danny Overstreet, born 1957, died 2000. Danny had a family that loved him. A poodle named Friday was his world. Yet oddly, he was shot by a homophobic man in a random shooting inside a gay cafe. Mother and son ran errands and went shopping regularly. She would tell Danny in the past, "Never leave your back to the door. People are crazy. They've lost their minds."
Gisberta, a transgender woman from Portugal, 1960 to 2006. Gisberta was tortured and sexually abused for days, then brutally murdered, killed by a horde of 14 boys ranging in age from 10 to 16 and raised to hate faggots. Ayaz Mohani, 16 years old, and Farhad Asghari. It's the second one. 2 Iranian teenagers executed for being gay. We in the U.S. can hardly blame the state of Iran for having anti-gay laws in 2005, while here in our home state, our president is still tolerating and enforcing anti-gay laws such as Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and many others. Joey Lietzitz, 20 years old, 1995. Joseph Lieto, Los Angeles, August 1999. Marcus Wayman, 18 years old, 1997, committed suicide by shooting himself after being threatened with outing to his family. Matthew Shepard, Laramie, Wyoming, 1998. Matthew Shepard on October the 5th, 1998 was convinced to ride with two men he met at a place called, it was a bar. They came to struck him in the head with a pistol in such of a massive blow that he was compressed to the skull and his brain tied to a fence, beaten and tortured, burned and robbed and left to die, begging for his life. Today, almost nearly 11 years later, we wait for hate crime legislation to be signed by our country. Winfield Scott Monder, 40 years old, and Gary Matson, 50 years old. A German couple who was shot to death in bed while sleeping.
Ryan Keith Skipper, March 2007, was beaten, stabbed 20 times, and his throat was slit. Alan R. Schindler, Jr., 22 years old, in 1992, Petty Officer 3rd Class, U.S. Navy. Alan was serving as a radio man in the Navy. He was killed by his own shipmates in a park. He was so badly beaten that every organ in his body had been destroyed, and his mother could only identify him by a tattoo on his arm. Justin Enos, killed in 2000. A young man killed because he danced like a girl. Barry Winschultz, 1999. Private First Class, U.S. Army. He had been harassed for being gay. Later, he was murdered while sleeping on an Army base by two other drunken soldiers. He was beaten with a bat. One soldier talked the other soldier into taking action and gave him the bat. However, it became obvious that the soldier that beat Barry to death went further than the first soldier envisioned. Ahmed Khalil, 14 years old, executed by police in Iraq, then taken from his home and shot several times at very close range. How can we expect more in a country where we claim to be intervening to bring democracy while in reality we ourselves don't protect the freedoms of our own LGBT people? In Florida, Ronnie Antonio Perez, a 3-year-old boy, was killed in January 2005 by his father because his father believed his son was gay. In Kentucky, Richie Phillips, 36 years old. The prosecution felt he was lured to his motel room and murdered because he was gay. In Alabama, Scott Weaver, July 2004. A gay teenager murdered. He was beaten, strangled, stabbed, cut, and burned.
And the list goes on. Billy Jack Gaither, 1999, 39 years old. James Primus, 1993, 35 years old. Nebraska, Brenda Tina, New Year's Eve, 1993, 21 years old. Alaska, William Metz, July 1994. Nevada, Anton Walker, August 1994, 54 years old. Arizona, Michael Despan, 1994, 24 years old. Thomas Frazee, 1994, 28 years old. Robert Haynes, 1994. Joseph Charles Halloran, 1994. Dwayne Lindsay, January 1994. And for the effort of showing a demonstration of the numbers, I'm going to ask the bell ringer to ring 15 times before I ring the names from California, and then we'll ring the names. November 1978. Marcelio Bessa, 1993. Thurman Brown, 1993. John Garfield, 1992. James Graves, 1993. Father Ronald Maupin, August 1993. Mayor George Moscone, 1978. John Duncan O'Farrell, 1993. Keith Oakland, 1993. Rose Person, 1998. Tony Ray, 1994. John Simmons, 1994. Cameron Tina Tanner, 1992. Tommy Wagner, 1994. Brian Wilmus, 1998. And Colorado, Paul Anderson, 1994.
More from Colorado, Mark Butts, 19